Hi, it's Leslie Meredith with Breakbulk Events and Media. I'm here in the studio in Bremen at Breakbulk Europe, and I'm joined by Johan from WSP. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. He did a session this morning, very interesting to our attendees about project outlook, opportunities. So, first, tell us a little bit about WSP.
WSP is in nature an American Canadian consultancy firm, mainly engineering consultancy. I'm working in a maritime team where we do both engineering and advisory work. That means that we do market studies, strategy studies, and we build business cases for ports, port operators, and even shipping lines. Fully focused on maritime, so all the work that we do is only in that specific domain. And that's the work I do.
Well, it sounds interesting, and you're certainly, well, good. I'm glad you like it. But it sounds like you're very well qualified to speak on this subject. So we're very grateful that you're here. So give us a couple of the highlights from your presentation this morning, things that are takeaways that people should know.
Right. I think there are three main market drivers which I spoke this morning about. One is the trade tariffs and the barriers, but also there are opportunities. Second is investment in infrastructure, and third is in renewables. Start with the barriers and opportunities. On the barriers side, actually, the trade barriers and tariffs are bad for trade in general. On the steel side, it hasn't happened too much. It didn't trickle down too much as the steel products are so specific. There's not so many options to source them from. So actually, you saw in Europe that there wasn't really a backlash from the tariffs just yet. It might come a little bit later, but they have to find a new sourcing. In Asia, the story is slightly different. We saw a bit of change there, where Chinese steel was replaced by steel coming from Vietnam or being routed over Vietnam. There, the picture was a little bit different. On the opportunity side, there's new trade agreements also signed with Canada, with Japan. The EU has signed new deals on that. Africa is joining up forces with the countries. Politically much more stable, and export credit agency are very willing to support projects there. So there's a great opportunity there to invest more. Southern America is also doing quite well. So, there's a lot of talk about trade barriers, but there's also a lot of potential out there. And it's just a matter of converting that into real trade and new breakbulk trade. Two of the areas where there's a lot of potential is, I suppose, in infrastructure investment in Europe and renewables. Infrastructure has been lagging a lot. Easy way to save money when doing austerity, and I think at some point we need to get the investment in infrastructure back up to maintain the quality of infrastructure that we have.
Are you talking about ports? What kind of infrastructure are we to discuss?
It's all the infrastructure. It's port infrastructure in certain places. You have to be careful where in some places there's a overcapacity, maybe in some places there's a lack of capacity, but it's also road connections, road maintenance. I think UK is a particular example of that. There are different opportunities, and all driving a demand for additional project cargo or breakbulk cargo. And a similar thing we see in renewables. There's a good opportunity there. Everyone knows the projection. Offshore wind is going to be picking up in the next decade or next 2 decades.
Certainly, Germany's a leader in that sector.
Yeah, it's mainly onshore. They will also go offshore, but especially the latest move is to go offshore. And the windmills, the turbines are getting bigger and bigger. So the port facilities need to have the right infrastructure to deal with these ever increasing blades, turbines, and everything. And that's also the vessels. Everything has to be scaled up to match that accordingly. A very interesting opportunity. But a great deal will depend on the political will to ramp up the transition to renewables. And secondly, it's also about how long the windmills and how long the turbines will last. If the turbines indeed last for 25 years, then that's what currently is used as projections. But if they might only last 15 years, and more reports are going in that direction, then we may need a lot of more port capacity in the short term.
Absolutely. So, what regions do you see hold the most promise?
Well, today in Breakbulk Europe, we discussed the European potential. So we looked at the European, and I think it's all countries with offshore potential. So all the countries bordering the Atlantic and the North Sea have a great opportunity. Denmark already sources a huge part of their energy demand from wind energy. I think there's a good opportunity in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in the UK. New projects are being developed and have been tendered, so there's definitely move in that direction. But to go to the net zero ambitions that the UK has, for example, expressed, I think we need to ramp it up much faster. And it's a good story for Breakbulk as well. Breakbulk ports will be busy with that.
Absolutely. That means a lot of new business for many of the companies that are here today.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what is needed. I think it's essential to match the facilities with this new demand. On the other hand, there will be also trades that will be do a little bit less well, trade barriers, and also transition to new commodities. So, breakbulk ports have to be flexible to adapt to this new change. They have to know what the market is doing, and unfortunately, this is much more dynamic and flexible than in container trade. So ports and also port authorities have to adjust for that with being more flexible, providing flexible concession conditions to match what the port operators are experiencing, which is, short-term uplifts in cargo, but can also drop with trade tariffs, with new projects, everything. It's much more dynamic than it used to be.
Oh, that's very interesting. So that would be advice to your customers, certainly, to be flexible and respond to all these different factors that are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. The market environment has been much more volatile and dynamic, and especially with the current, we also heard this morning that the economic outlook might be holding some more volatility in it. So ports have to adjust for it. We used to have concession agreements for longer term. Maybe we should reconsider that and make it a little bit shorter there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.